2 days after the death of his mother, Charles III is officially declared king. In a ceremony steeped in tradition that the vast majority of the country has never witnessed before, it was one of the first official steps to introduce King Charles as our new monarch. With an audience full of senior politicians and prime ministers past and present, the king spoke of his personal grief and the road ahead.
I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me.
And it was the sound of gun salutes ringing through the air across the country that signals that a new era had begun. Well, with that done, now begins the process of officially saying goodbye to his mother, Queen Elizabeth, the details of which have just been released, including where and when she'll be lying in state. We'll have all the information for you, but also tonight, a show of unity in the midst of their grief. The royal family sees firsthand the public's outpouring of love for their mother and grandmother. On the first weekend since her death, thousands take to the streets around the country to pay their respects. And we take a look at the love affair between the Queen and her corgis.
From Buckingham Palace, this is ITV News with Charlene White.
Yes, good afternoon from Buckingham Palace on another huge day for King and country as Charles III was formally declared head of state. The Accession Council met this morning in the first major ceremonial event since the death of the Queen. And in a signal of the times, it was televised for the first time ever, allowing all of us to take a look at history in action. We witnessed Charles proclaimed king in front of the new Prince of Wales, the Queen Consort and Prime Ministers past and present. And in a deeply personal address, His Majesty said he'll strive to follow his late mother's inspiring example, but also spoke of the heavy task ahead. In one of his first acts as king, he confirmed that the Queen's funeral will be a bank holiday. The date and details of that ceremony and the journey the Queen's coffin is about to embark on have just been released. We'll have more on that in just a moment. But first, here's Romilly Weeks on today's historic events.
In a palace built by Henry VIII, a ceremonial event heavy with history. The first time in 70 years this country has proclaimed a new monarch. The first time ever all of us, via television cameras, have been allowed to follow the great and the good in. Within St James's Palace, the Accession Council. In the front row, the remarkable sight of all former living prime ministers, side by side, to witness the formal declaring of a new king. Penny Mordaunt, Lord President of the Council for 4 days, announcing the death of a monarch of 7 decades.
My Lords, it is my sad duty to inform you that Her Most Gracious Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, has passed away on Thursday, the 8th of September, 2022, at Balmoral Castle.
Under the gaze of a prince for whom this will be the future as well as the present, the still unfamiliar pronouncement.
God save the King.
God save the King.
And then, showing just how much has changed in the life of this country, the new Prime Minister, followed into the throne room by the new Prince of Wales and the new King. Echoing the declarations spoken by monarchs past, but which sovereign has ever spoken as personally as this?
It is my most sorrowful duty to announce to you the death of my beloved mother, the Queen. I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathise with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered. It is the greatest consolation to me to know of the sympathy expressed by so many to my sister and brothers and that such overwhelming affection and support should be extended to our whole family in our loss.
A loss etched in the face of the Queen Consort beside him as he paid tribute to his mother.
My mother's reign was unequalled in its duration, its dedication and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set. In all this, I am profoundly encouraged by the constant support of my beloved wife.
And then this ancient oath made by every sovereign since 1714.
I, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of my other realms and territories, King, Defender of the Faith, do faithfully promise and swear that I shall inviolably maintain and preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland.
The weight of history heavy, the modernity subtle. The king signed the declaration with ink from a pot given to him by his sons. The strain of the occasion momentarily showing on his face. As politicians signed themselves,
Well, I'll just have to put my glasses on, in case I see what I'm doing.
a document that historians will read centuries on, under the eye of the Duke of Edinburgh, a reminder of how much we've recently lost. There can hardly be a person around the world who hasn't already heard the news, but this way, from this balcony of this palace in London, is how it's always been declared.
Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to his mercy our late Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. God save the King!
The crowds recording on their mobile phones an event from an age when the news was spread by messenger on horseback. As the band of the Coldstream Guards began the national anthem, those watching outside joined in, the tune so familiar, some of the words so new. A spontaneous ripple of applause, and then this final flourish.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
From Hyde Park, the guns sounded. The news has to be heard as well as seen. From Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, a simultaneous salute. As tradition dictates, and today was all about tradition, the proclamation announced too in the City of London. Pikemen and musketeers heralding its arrival in a scene straight out of the Civil War.
With one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
The uniform of the trumpeters still carrying the late Queen's insignia, but we're in a new era now. And as King Charles drove slowly back to Buckingham Palace, the crowds applauded as he went. His grief still so new, but his duty already upon him. Romilly Weeks, ITV News.
Well, as we mentioned, details have just been released about the movements of the Queen's coffin and her funeral. There will be a lying in rest in Edinburgh, followed by a lying in state in Westminster, which members of the public will be able to attend. The state's funeral service will take place on Monday, the 19th of September, which will be a bank holiday. Rachel Younger has more.
Enfolded by the landscape she loved, the Queen has lain in the ballroom of Balmoral since her death. But soon her journey must begin away from the place she loved most on earth. Tomorrow her coffin will travel from Balmoral Castle to Edinburgh and the Palace of Holyrood House. Staff there will be able to pay their respects. So in the Scottish capital today, they are preparing for what comes next. On Monday, a procession along the Royal Mile, accompanying the coffin to St Giles's Cathedral for a service and later a vigil around the Queen's coffin, attended by all of her children. There, she will lie at rest for 24 hours, Scotland's chance to say goodbye. Just as her eldest son did yesterday, the Queen then heads south. Tuesday will see the Queen taken from Edinburgh to London, first to RAF Northolt, then on to Buckingham Palace. From her home of 7 decades, the coffin will follow a route so familiar to all of her 15 prime ministers. On Wednesday, travelling from Buckingham Palace to the Palace of Westminster. There, she will lie in state for 4 days. Like her grandfather and her mother here before her, the Queen will rest beneath her flag in the vast expanse of Westminster Hall. In 2002, 200,000 people queued for hours for their moment to mourn.
If the crowd today are anything to go by, there's going to be far more in excess of that. I mean, this is a moment in history. There has never been a monarch on the throne in Britain for so long. And so this will be history in the making.
On Monday, 19th of September, Westminster Abbey will stage her state funeral, beginning at 11. Britain's grateful goodbye.
16 years ago, he walked behind this same gun carriage with his 3 brothers.
7 long decades after she mourned her father, George VI, with thousands of others on a bitter winter's day. The same pomp and splendour afforded to her first Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, in 1965. This was the last time the nation mourned with a full state funeral, the young Queen breaking protocol to be present, just as so many will want to be there for her.
It's been rehearsed over and over again, which is why I think we will be in for a very moving and magnificent few days ahead.
Finally, on Monday, the coffin will be taken by road to Windsor for a committal service at St George's Chapel. The setting for Prince Philip's starkly simple service. Who can forget how our late Queen sat there alone to mourn him? And it will be there, in a private burial, that they'll be reunited, after a lifetime of service, in death, together again. Rachel Younger, ITV News.
The focus of royal events will now move from here in London to Balmoral and Edinburgh over the next couple of days. Our royal editor Chris Shipp is about to head there and joins us from central London tonight. Chris, can you talk us through what we're likely to see?
You know, Charlene, there was a lot of detail that we've just had released in the last 10 minutes, and I'll just bring, what I can to you about what's currently happening at Balmoral. We are told that the Queen lies in an oak coffin. It's in the ballroom at Balmoral Castle, which we knew already, but it is draped in the royal standard in Scotland. The atmosphere in the room, we are told, is one of quiet dignity, as staff who served the Queen and worked with her for so many years pay their respects. But as you rightly point out, there's a process now which is all about what's happening in Scotland, and this move of the coffin, which will happen tomorrow from Balmoral Castle to the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. Remember, that's the Queen's official residence where she stays when she's on official duty in Scotland. And it's the detail, like there will be 6 gamekeepers which will carry the coffin from the ballroom to the hearse. When the hearse travels, it will take 6 hours to go from Balmoral to Edinburgh, and it's going at a speed, the hearse, described like this: a manner which will allow people to witness the move. In other words, from the journey from Balmoral to Edinburgh to Dundee to Balmoral to Aberdeen, and then to Dundee and then to Edinburgh, 6 hours, so that people in Scotland can pay their respects along that route. And then there's that other significant moment which we're going to have on Monday, when the King and the Queen Consort and other members of the royal family will walk in procession behind the coffin as it goes along the Royal Mile and into St Giles Cathedral for that service, after which there will be an opportunity for people in Edinburgh and elsewhere in Scotland to pay their respects for 24 hours before the Queen makes a final journey by air to London.
And we've seen yet another day of history today, and we've had a real insight into a ceremony that just about none of us has ever witnessed before. I mean, what are your thoughts about today?
It's hard to know where to begin about that accession council. The first one that we've had, obviously, since 1952. The first time that it's ever proclaimed a king since 1936, and the first time that cameras have been allowed in to witness what actually happens, and that relationship between a new monarch and the Privy Council. They are his advisors. That dates back to a time of Norman kings. But as much as he was giving his permission, as it were, to the constitutional democracy and the parliamentarians who serve him, they were also giving their permission for this monarch. They were all signing, all those former prime ministers were signing the books as they left there to say that they agree that he should be proclaimed King Charles III. It was quite an historic day.
Safe journey, Chris, and we'll speak to you tomorrow. Well, we're joined now by Neil Connery at Holyrood. Jordan Moats is in Hillsborough and Rhys Williams is in Cardiff. OK, Neil, I'm going to come to you first. What will the events of the next 3 days look like?
Well, as we now learn, the Queen's coffin will arrive here tomorrow afternoon. The eyes of the world will be focused on Edinburgh over the next few days. But first, tomorrow morning, we will have the Scottish proclamation of King Charles III. That will happen on Market Cross, just up the Royal Mile. It will be read out by Lord Lyon, the King of Arms. There'll be a fanfare, a royal salute of 21 guns from Edinburgh Castle. Now, as we've also learned, King Charles and the Queen Consort will be here on Monday for that procession up to St Giles Cathedral for the service we've been learning about in the last hour or so. The King will also have an audience with Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and then he will hold a vigil with members of the royal family at St Giles while the Queen lies in rest before returning here to the palace overnight.
And the King and Queen Consort will be in Northern Ireland on Tuesday. They'll arrive into Belfast and then make their way to Hillsborough Castle. This is the official royal residence in Northern Ireland, and it's where the focal point has been over the last number of days for those floral tributes to and people wishing to make messages of condolence. While here, he will view an exhibition to Her Majesty's life, and he will no doubt speak with staff who spent time with Her Majesty when she visited here many, many times over the years. He will then make his way to St Anne's Cathedral, where he will take part in a service of prayer and reflection with leaders from across the political divide here in Northern Ireland before making his way back to London.
Within the last hour or so, we've had confirmation that the King will travel to Wales next Friday. He's expected to attend a memorial service at Llandaff Cathedral here in Cardiff, and we're expecting more information about more of his duties in the next few days. There was a 21 gun salute here in Cardiff today to mark the proclamation of the King as well. The salute was watched by almost 1,000 people at the castle. Flags have also been raised today in Wales, but will be lowered to half-mast once again tomorrow as a mark of respect to the Queen. Preparations have been in full swing here in Cardiff Castle within the outer walls for the Welsh proclamation of the King tomorrow morning. That will be attended by the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, and the Secretary of State for Wales, Sir Robert Buckland.
OK, well, to Neil, Rhys and Jordan, thanks very much. Well, look, there's a lot of detail to take in terms of what we can expect over the next few days, but we've got all of that information on our website for you, including where you can watch the Queen's funeral. That's all at itv.com/news. Tens of thousands of people have been heading to royal residences across the country to feel part of this moment in history. In Green Park, which I'm facing right now, actually, it's just behind my camera operator, huge crowds have been leaving flowers, paying their respects and just taking a moment. There have been similar scenes in Windsor as well, with the famous long walk packed with people all day. And some of them are being thanked in person by the new Prince and Princess of Wales, who have been joined by Prince Harry and Meghan as well. Ben Chapman now reports on those who wanted to show their respect. But actually, before we get to that, in fact, I think we have got pictures of Prince William. No, that's Prince Harry and Meghan. We can see Harry and Meghan looking at flowers. And William and Kate are with them as well. You can see the crowd behind them as they're looking at the flowers, joining many senior royals who have taken time to speak to the public, spend time with the public, and also have a look at that outpouring of love and grief that members of the public have been showing over the past few days. That is the four of them. That's Prince William and Kate and Harry and Meghan, united in their grief, in shots which many have hoped for and now can see those two brothers and their wives in Windsor taking time out to see members of the public. And we're looking at now, yep, they're going to look at more of the flowers. I mean, Windsor has just been packed full of thousands of people along that long walk, with people wanting to share stories, to share their grief, to talk about the Queen, to leave those flowers, I guess, yes, for themselves, but also in the hope that some royals would come, they would see those flowers, they would take time to read those notes. As you can see now, Harry just bending over just now with Meghan and looking at some of those, I'm sure, beautiful words that have been written about his grandmother. And also William and Kate have been doing the same thing. Amy Lewis has been watching the four of them take time out this afternoon to have a look at those flowers. Amy, how was it received by the public when they realised that the princes and their other halves were going to be stepping out this afternoon?
Well, yes, we only were expecting the Prince and Princess of Wales, as they are newly titled, to be here in Windsor today. So it was something of a surprise for everyone to see that also Meghan and Harry were joining the clearly, because it is both princes who have lost their grandmother in the past couple of days. They came down the Cambridge Way together, all four of them holding hands, and stopped and looked at all of the flowers. They are still here now doing that, looking at the thousands of flowers that have been left here by the members of public. They've been reading all of the messages that have been left as well in tribute to the Queen. So very much a show of unity today. As we are watching at the moment, Meghan has just put her arm around Harry. Really emotional scenes here. And members of the public came today to lay flowers, walked up the long walk, and also been laying flowers here by the outside of Windsor Castle. But they had no idea that they were going to be seeing any royals, let alone four. Just before we went on air, Prince released us the first time that he
Okay, thank you so much for that, Amy. We're going to stay with these pictures for a little while, and we can see the magnitude of those flowers. That's what we can see now. As Amy said, thousands of flowers have been laid today from members of the public that have wanted to pay their respects to the Queen. I think a lot of people just wanted to be with each other in this moment in history. For moments like this, to see the Princess, to see them with their wives, to see them taking a look at those flowers, taking a look at those messages of support, those outpourings of grief. And now we can be joined now by Chris Sept once again. Chris, this is a moment that many people had hoped for, and it's wonderful just to be able to see.
You're absolutely right, and I think we can now say really in death the Queen has been able to bring together two brothers who up until this point were barely speaking. Let's just remind ourselves that both Harry and Meghan were in the UK this week in any case for a series of events, and yet they, despite living very close to William and Kate on the Windsor estates, they had not exchanged any words or spoken. So the fact that the Sussexes and the Cambridges, as we used to call them, but now the Prince and Princess of Wales, are able to do this, to walk out in front of the public, it is a huge, huge moment after everything that's happened with the departure of Harry and Meghan from the royal family, the claims made on that long and infamous Oprah Winfrey interview, the very fact that the two brothers and their wives are doing this right now. I think most people might conclude that in death the Queen has been able to bring these two brothers, the siblings and their wives together.
Indeed, and I know that I'm not sure if you can see these pictures right now, Chris, but I will just describe them to you. We can now see Prince William and Kate, who are greeting members of the public. They're spending time talking to members of the public. They're doing something not dissimilar to what Prince Charles III did yesterday, and that is shaking hands, that is spending time. It feels as though, similar to yesterday, this is a new era. This is the way that they want to do things. They do want to make sure that they do still feel that connection to the public, which they have worked on over the past few years and have done very successfully. And this is exactly what Prince William and Kate are doing at the moment, and also Meghan and Prince Harry. That's exactly what they are doing too. They are greeting members of the public. It feels like, Chris, this is very much a new era in terms of what we are going to see going forward.
I mean, it's entirely possible that there's a lot of water that's gone under the bridge since Harry and Meghan left the royal family in 2020. And I think looking at these pictures, seeing them doing that sort of joint walkabout, if you like, is something quite remarkable. We haven't seen the two brothers do this for some considerable time. And we should also remember that when Prince William flew up to Balmoral on the news of the imminent death of his grandmother, the Queen, Prince Harry had to fly separately. As my understanding, he might have even had to have chartered his own plane in order to get up there. That kind of explains the rift that existed and still existed literally 2 days ago on Thursday afternoon, before the announcement of the death of the Queen was made by Buckingham Palace. And here we are on Saturday evening looking at pictures of Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, alongside the new Prince and Princess of Wales. And we should perhaps remind ourselves again, the title Princess of Wales was one that Harry's and William and Harry's mother had, and we were told yesterday that the significance of that title was not lost on Kate when it was bestowed on her by the King yesterday. And think what that means for Harry as well, that his sister-in-law now carries the title that his late mother once had. I think there's so much symbolism, and looking at these pictures, I think a lot of people will feel mightily relieved that perhaps they found a path, perhaps they found a way to move forward together after all the acrimony that has happened behind the scenes.
Okay, Chris, what we're looking at now is pictures of Harry and Meghan, who are with members of the public now, doing something very similar on the other side of the path to where William and Kate, Prince William and Kate are, where they are greeting members of the public. They are taking bunches of flowers. Interestingly, I think one of the security guards just asked Meghan if she wanted him to take the flowers away, and she says, "No, it's fine, I will carry them." You know, because they are making their way down that path, they are greeting people, they are taking time and talking to members of the public, not just rushing it through. They really are taking their time. I'm actually going to bring Penny Juna, who is a royal author, into this conversation, Chris, because she is with me at the moment. Penny, you're watching these pictures with me. How significant is this moment, do you think?
Well, I think this could be, the gift that this sadness of the Queen's death could produce. My guess is that the Queen's dying wish, if she had one, would have been that her grandsons started talking to one another again, were friends with one another again. This has been the greatest tragedy in the royal family, I would have said, almost ever. And, it seemed they'd reached an impasse, but to see them together, they haven't spoken to one another. They were side by side, William and Harry, at the unveiling of Diana's statue, and then they both went their separate ways. They didn't even have a cup of tea together. That is looking really promising, and I think that Prince Charles last night, King Charles now, yeah. Last night, when he made that amazing speech in which he just nailed everything that needed to be said, he specifically said how much he loved Harry and Meghan and wished them well in their new life. I think that was hugely important because it was a signal, I think, to them that they are very much a part of this new era. They may be living abroad, but they are still very much loved. And again, his dearest wish, I have no doubt, is that his sons love one another again.
I mean, we know the headlines. You and I both read the headlines regarding Prince Harry and Meghan. Could they have done anything else? They had to go out and they had to see the public today, but it would have been by choice to do it with Prince William and Kate. Is that correct?
My guess is they've chosen. If an official had said to them, a courtier had said, "I think it would be a really good idea for you to be seen together," I don't think they would necessarily have done it. I think, they are two stubborn men, actually. And I think that...
No, and it's not dissimilar from brothers up and down the country, really.
Of course.
Well, look, I'm going to bring Chris back into this. Because, Chris, I believe you got a statement there from Prince William's office.
Yeah, less a statement, but just some indication from Kensington Palace, from a source within the palace, which now looks after the Prince and Princess of Wales, as William and Kate are known. And it is that the Prince of Wales invited the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to join him and his wife, the Princess of Wales, earlier. So I think if people were wondering whether this was an olive branch from Prince William to his brother after everything that has happened, there is confirmation from Prince William, the Prince of Wales' office, that he invited his brother and his sister-in-law to join them there. And remember, they have been living very close to one another on the Windsor estate. William and Kate, the Prince and Princess of Wales, recently moved to Adelaide Cottage on the Windsor estate. Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, have kept Frogmore Cottage. Literally, they have been metres apart in this past week and haven't actually spoken. So we should reiterate that looking at these pictures of those two brothers and their two wives jointly leaving the gates, meeting the well-wishers at the end of the long walk, this is, we cannot underestimate the significance of this moment. And perhaps, as Penny was just saying, I think if the Queen had one dying wish, it might have been that her two grandsons could get over their differences. She didn't live to see that. But wherever she is right now, if she were to be looking at these pictures, then I think she will be heartened to see what is happening in front of the gates of Windsor Castle, a place that she loved. And she will be looking down, if we can use those words, on what is happening with a smile.
Yeah, that's not dissimilar to what Penny was just saying. If there had been one wish for the Queen before she passed, is that there would be a reconnection between these two brothers, because that relationship is hugely important. I believe we've got another. We've managed to reconnect with Amy Lewis, who's at Windsor Castle at the moment. Amy, I mean, what is the atmosphere like? I mean, people just must be so shocked but so pleased that the four of them have arrived.
Well, certainly they came here today just expecting to be laying flowers here outside of Windsor Castle. It was clear from an hour or so ago when we started to see fences going up that perhaps something was going to be happening. We knew that the Prince and Princess of Wales, as they are newly titled, will be coming, but we had no idea that Harry and Meghan would be coming. And as they came down in their car and got out, there was a cheer from the crowd here. I don't think anyone could quite believe it. What a remarkable moment after so much acrimony that we've seen between those brothers over the last year or so. But still, they are out now, still meeting members of the public after spending some time looking at messages. Each couple were holding hands. It was quite poignant, of course, and it was here at Windsor Castle because this is where the Queen has spent the last couple of years living, and indeed where each of the brothers at the moment is either staying and has been staying in the case of Harry for the last few days, or in the case of William, where he's now living in Adelaide Cottage just next to Windsor Castle. So yes, members of the public here coming just to lay flowers in memory of the Queen and get to meet perhaps a future king, the heir to the throne, William, and his brother, Harry. They've been here now for 15 to 20 minutes meeting members of the public. We're not sure how much longer they will stay for. We saw earlier on Meghan, when she arrived, put her arm around Harry, because of course this is, yes, the public have lost their Queen, but when it comes to Harry and William, they have lost their grandmother. And today, just before we went on air, Harry released, William released a statement reflecting that. He called the Queen Granny. He said that she was by his side for the best times of his life and also the saddest days. And he said it will be some time before the reality of this would be sinking in. He went on in that statement to say, "My grandmother famously said that grief was the price that we pay for love. I'll honour her memory by supporting my father, the King, in any way I can." He released that statement just before he came out here, and now clearly not just supporting his father, but joined with Harry in what has been a very special moment today for the royal family.
Okay, what we're going to do right now is the atmosphere down there, Amy, that you've been talking about. I'm watching it now, it looks incredible, but let's just see if we can just hear a little bit of that atmosphere so that people at home can get a sense of it as well. I mean, it is truly remarkable what it is that we're seeing here, Penny, isn't it? And I think what's wonderful is in both brothers and both their wives, you can see that lightness of touch with members of the public. And, you know, nobody who arrived today expected to be able to see this afternoon. It's a remarkable moment for each and every one of them. And it's the reaction to both sets of families, just how big a moment it is for the public to see them.
Well, I mean, this whole episode, this whole day, this whole period is hugely important for the public, in not just in terms of, you know, their excitement at seeing members of the family, but actually in seeing how the transition is happening, how we're moving from one era, from where we had a woman, a queen who had lived for decades, 96 years, and a younger, fresher idea, just because of the age difference, you know, bringing in a new era. And clearly it is going to be one where we'll see a lot more of this. I mean, Prince Charles last night getting out of his car at the gates of Buckingham Palace was extraordinary, I thought. Not just sweeping in the new king, but actually the human being, the man who, you know, he knows as well as his mother did why he's there. It's for the public.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, and this is what we're seeing here, is the human side of the royal family. That's what we've got here in Windsor. Let's listen in again to what's going on.
Thank you so much. It's very sweet of us. I'll make sure these flowers get up to the gates, okay? Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, boys. Yeah, you're very smart. What's your name? James. This is your brother. Well, you say that. He has his moments. Nice to see you guys. Very nice to meet you guys. Have you been up there before? One thing I see as well. Coming there, Corby. Thank you so much. I love you,
Well, if you are just joining us, we're now watching this scene in Windsor on the Long Walk, where we have Prince William and Kate and Prince Harry and Meghan, who have taken to that path to greet, meet and say thank you to members of the public. Let's listen in.
I'm only around the corner, so anytime. I'm a personal trainer and I teach karate. I run my own karate club if you can need
I need to get the lessons.
See?
Some karate lessons to help me
Give
out.
me a call, Amy Benton. We love you, William. Nice to see you.
Cars keep moving. Fall off your down shoulders with a hook neck. We've got everyone together. I'll double check. Try and get on every hand.
You're right.
I think busy sailing, busy out. Come back in a minute. Thank you so much.
What do you make of all of this?
Charlene, I was just thinking that it was only a few years ago that the long walk there in Windsor was that crowded for Harry and Meghan's wedding in what seemed like an entirely different era, and what at the time felt like a new beginning for the royal family. So much has changed in that time, so much acrimony has happened, and we've now had the passing of one brain to another. The fact that the Prince of Wales offered to his brother, the Duke of Sussex, to join him on this walkabout on the Long Walk, a place I've just said Harry and Meghan know well because this is where they were married. I think we cannot overestimate the significance of this moment and what perhaps the passing of the Queen has done for the relations between these two brothers. I'm about to travel to Scotland, where they've just released a lot of detail about the Queen's coffin and the arrangements for her funeral, but I don't think anyone in the royal family, not anyone around the late Queen and not anyone around the new King, will mind one bit that right now this is the focus of our attention and the attention of the nation, what is happening right now on the Long Walk in Windsor.
And welcome if you're just joining us. We are going to stay with these pictures on this special ITV News programme as Prince William and Kate and Prince Harry and Meghan have taken to the Long Walk in Windsor to thank and pay their respects alongside the public to the Queen.
Bye everyone, thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.
I've got to say, Penny, that was quite something. I mean, to see the four of them in front of that car, then all four of them get into the same car, considering what has happened over the last few years, that is quite a moment.
Absolutely. I mean, those four could not stand to be in each other's sights. It was quite obvious over the past months. This is remarkable. And it may not be that the relationship is back to square one, but this is certainly the start of something, I would guess. I would hope.
Oh, well, Penny, we all do hope for that. I mean, Chris earlier was saying that the last time we saw these crowds on the long walk, we were full of hope. That was when Prince Harry and Meghan got married. I was standing on that long walk talking to members of the public.
Yeah. I was
and
there
then to see where we have gone to and to see where we are today as a result of the death of their grandmother is truly something.
It would make her happy.
It really
wherever she
I think it probably made not only people down there quite emotional, but I think people who have been watching quite emotional as well. When you think about the sort of headlines that we've seen regarding Meghan over the last few years, you would think that she is universally a figure of hate. She takes to the long walk in Windsor there, and you had girls in tears. There was really sweet moments where she embraced a young woman who was in so much shock when she saw her. And this is the moment when they walked out of those gates. And that's when the public realised that they were going to have their moment with Prince Harry, with Meghan, with Prince William and Kate. And I don't know, it's what we have all hoped for.
It is.
We hoped it wouldn't have taken the death of the Queen for that to happen, but it is something that so many of us have hoped for.
Well, if there's a good outcome, surely this is it.
Yeah, and you know, Meghan, people were so excited, yes, to see the four of them, but I think Meghan, because she doesn't live here, it's very rare that people get any kind of interaction with her.
And
it was honestly fascinating
to
see.
I would have thought it would be quite nerve-wracking for her, actually.
Can you imagine?
I mean, she will have seen the headlines, she will have read the books that have been written about her. People have they've turned against her. The majority of people in this country, I think.
Well, I think majority who shout the loudest. I think when you have a look at those who truly have love for the royal family, the way in which she was embraced amongst that crowd, the reaction that she provoked in so many people.
But as you say, when they were last on that long walk, the whole country, I would say, was in love with her. You know, they were so pleased for them on that wedding day. So I think, I mean, you know, it's been a rocky road for her. I would have thought it's taken some guts, actually, to get back here.
Yeah, and it's a rocky road for those brothers as well. I mean, yes, we see them standing side by side and talking amongst themselves, looking at those flowers on screen right now. And, you know, it's not easy considering what it is that they have been through, but they both loved their grandmother. And there is something about grief that really does unite a family, doesn't it?
It does, it does.
And it's been wonderful to see here. And, you know, I know this isn't to overshadow what happened 2 days ago. That is not to overshadow the death of the Queen in any shape or form. But it's incredible to see what that has sparked and what we are going to see going forward. Seeing Prince Charles take to the path just behind us just yesterday and greeting members of the public, and then witnessing what we have seen today in Windsor. It does provoke hope, doesn't it, Penny?
Absolutely it does, and I think that's, that's been apparent from yesterday when I keep saying Prince Charles, when am I going to stop? When the new king made his speech and was so positive, so grief-stricken, so he hit such a perfect note, and I think it was an indication of, here. Is he out? Is he out? Is he...
we just heard a bit of a roar behind us, so we're just wondering what's happening behind us at the gates of Buckingham Palace.
But it is a hopeful period out of the grief and the distress of the death of the Queen. Yeah. But she was an old lady. We knew it had to happen sooner or later. But if some good can come out of it, if there can be a smooth transition for the new king, if the family can be reunited, and clearly, it's too much to say the nation, but certainly all the people, the crowds in Windsor and here and Balmoral, they love this family.
Yeah.
I think it's a real day of optimism.
Yeah, and I think seeing a united family can only ever be a good thing. Penny, thank you so much for talking to us. Actually, do you know what? I think it might get you to stay for a little bit longer, just in case Charles comes out, so please don't go anywhere just yet. So we'll take a break from those remarkable scenes at Windsor for just a moment, because other members of the royal family were also out today to view the huge numbers of flowers left for the Queen and to see the crowds who had gathered across the country. Ben Chapman has more.
At Balmoral this afternoon, the crowds who'd gathered at the place where the Queen passed away were greeted by her 3 youngest children. Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, expressing their gratitude 2 days after losing their mother.
Where have you come from? Inverness. Thank you for coming all this way. Appreciate it.
Together with some of the Queen's grandchildren, they paused to look at the flowers and messages. The emotion obvious on the face of Prince Edward's wife, Sophie. Princess Beatrice comforted by her father, Prince Andrew, overcome at the many tributes left to her grandmother.
You feel for her family as well as you would feel for a neighbour's family, what they're going through and how they're suffering, because it's their mum, it's their grandma, as well as being our Queen who has served us for a very long time.
For many, the weekend presented the first opportunity to pay their respects. People queuing in nearby Ballater for buses to take them to Balmoral. Many hundreds of miles further south, thousands of well-wishers descended on another royal palace, Windsor, some travelling from across the country to be there.
I am really quite surprised how emotional I feel about it and how we suddenly last night said, should we go up to Windsor from Southampton, should we go? To be amongst it.
This affected her deeply seeing it. So she wanted to come here and lay some flowers and show her respect and definitely just remember it. It's going to be in her memories forever.
In London, an area of Green Park close to Buckingham Palace has become a garden of remembrance as people came together to share their fondest memories of the Queen.
I got big flowers for her and I make sure it was really colourful because the Queen always wears something colourful.
And as the band played outside the palace, the mood seemed to shift here from one of shock to one of reflection.
We're sad, but we're also glad to be a part of it, I guess, to be able to pay our respects the way that we are able to.
Yeah, and really celebrating the Queen's life, really, isn't it, for, all the years that she's been on the throne.
This afternoon, the crowds cheered to welcome the newly proclaimed King home to Buckingham Palace. The affection they feel for the Queen, matched by support for those who will continue her service. Ben Chapman, ITV News.
Well, thank you for sticking with us this afternoon as we look at the life of the Queen, but also the events of a historic day. Earlier we saw Prince William and Prince Harry and Kate and also Meghan in Windsor. And just now, just behind me, King Charles III left Buckingham Palace. He left Buckingham Palace in his car, and the roar of the crowd, I don't know if you're able to hear it, but the roar of the crowd was a very early indication that King Charles was on his way out. And the reaction here was just incredible. I can't see the Queen Consort in the car with him, so it was just King Charles that was exiting Buckingham Palace. But honestly, it's something that the crowds here have been waiting for all day. Well, if you are with us, you are watching an extended version of ITV News. We will be with you until 6:15. So thank you so much for joining us on what has been an incredible, incredible day. People across the country have continued to pay their respects to the Queen. And in the sporting and public events that did take place today, people paused to remember her, as Geraint Vincent reports.
A sporting Saturday in the shadow of the death of a Queen, where there has not been consensus on how best to proceed. Football was cancelled across the home nations, but at the Oval, after calling off play yesterday, the test match returned, and the players took to the field in total silence. And then for the first time in a lifetime at this famous old ground, those words were sung. In the countryside, a horse show. There were black armbands here too, and a salute.
Salute, ladies and gentlemen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
And some of the very best of British eccentricity. From the 17th century came pageantry not quite up to the standard of St James's Palace, but there was a man dressed up as the last king who was called Charles. They were enjoying themselves here, but the show started with a solemn prayer.
Thank you, Your Majesty, for all that you've done. Gather up the reins now. It's your time to ride on.
There are some places where they have only recently learned about Elizabeth II and what she represents. These are the children of Ukrainian refugees. At the community centre, their parents sang a lament from their homeland.
My daughter ran from street and said me when she was playing with children, "Mama, Queen died." And in her eyes I saw really very, very big sadness. And we are new here, but for us it's big loss.
There were crowds at the Rugby League today as well, and they roared through the anthem here too. But the kingdom is different now, and its people will take some time to get used to it. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
Leslie C. Romney Weeks has joined us here outside Buckingham Palace. Ron, what do you make of today's events?
Well, Charlene, I thought I was going to be talking to you about the proclamation ceremony, that extraordinary historical event that we saw this morning, but I think we've been rather overtaken by events and that unexpected impromptu walkabout by the Prince and Princess of Wales, Kate and William, and also Meghan and Harry. What an important moment of reconciliation that was. And I think King Charles really paved the way for this in his first statement on the day of the death of his mother, when he spoke of his love and his hopes for both Meghan and Harry. And what a moment this is, what an important moment of reconciliation. And you've got to think how pleased the Queen would have been that the brothers have come back together.
Indeed, I'm sure she is smiling. Well, that brings our special programme to a close on another key day in the history of king and country. This morning, in a ceremony never televised before, as Ron was talking about, the Accession Council formally declared Charles III as sovereign and head of state. In a personal declaration, the new king said he would strive to follow his late mother's inspiring example. He made an oath and signed the proclamations. And whilst we've been on air, there have been some honestly, truly touching scenes at Windsor. The new Prince and Princess of Wales were joined by Duke and Duchess of Sussex, meeting and thanking crowds. The brothers were together once again, united in grief. Are we seeing a new era for the royal family? We can certainly hope so. Tom will be here with the latest with news at 10, but for me and everybody here, bye-bye.